The combined fleet assembled in the Nexus system represented every free species in the galaxy. Admiral Yeon Su stood on the bridge of the massive battleship, Unity's Stand, watching as human and alien vessels formed the largest military formation in galactic history. "Final fleet count, Admiral," Commander Taemin reported from his position at the tactical station. 12,000 vessels from the Confederation, 800 human ships, enemy contacts number in the millions. Admiral, Yeonsu nodded grimly. The numbers were not encouraging, but humans had taught the galaxy that numbers did not always determine victory. "Signal all ships. Battle formation Omega. Prepare for engagement." Captain Seok-jin checked his instruments one final time aboard the Eternal Vigil. The quantum disruptor filled most of his ship's cargo bay, its exotic matter core contained within fields that bent space itself. Dr. Ji-Hai's calculations showed only a 12% chance of successful delivery. "Crew report," he called to his mixed human-alien team. "Engineering ready," reported Engineer Dong-wook, his 6 Tethran arms dancing across control panels with nervous energy. "Hull integrity at maximum. Stealth systems activated." Lieutenant Hyo-jin, the human weapons officer, looked up from her station. "Disruptor armed and ready. Quantum signatures nominal. Admiral, we are ready to make the final run." Throughout the fleet, similar conversations took place as beings from a dozen worlds prepared to fight an enemy that wanted to consume their very souls. Captain Min-ho commanded a destroyer filled with Velkari troops who had learned to fight, like humans. Their battle songs echoed through the corridors, ancient melodies that spoke of standing against impossible odds. The Hunger Fleet appeared at the edge of the system like a cancer spreading across the stars. The biomechanical ships moved with perfect coordination, their living hulls pulsing with organic light. At their center, the massive consciousness node dominated the formation like a diseased moon. "Contact in 30 minutes, Admiral Yeonsu announced to the fleet. "All ships, remember your training. Do not think like soldiers fighting other soldiers. Think like guardians protecting everything you love." General Yoon-ji watched the approaching enemy from her position aboard the assault carrier Last Hope. Her human troops were ready for boarding actions that would take place inside hunger vessels, fighting in conditions that would drive most species insane. "Squad leaders, remember your neural discipline training," she broadcast to her forces. "The hunger will try to absorb you the moment you make contact. Maintain individual identity at all costs." Bioengineer Sang-woo monitored the enemy fleet from his laboratory ship, tracking the quantum signatures that held their collective consciousness. Together, "Admiral Yeon-su, I am detecting massive quantum fluctuations from the consciousness node. They are preparing some kind of coordinated attack." The first wave of hunger ships struck the outer defensive line like a tide of living death. The biomechanical vessels flowed around defensive positions, their hulls shifting and adapting to counter incoming fire. But the combined fleet had learned from human tactical doctrine. "All ships, pattern Chaos 7, Admiral Yeon-su ordered. No predictable movements, no formation integrity. Fight like hunting packs, not military units." The battle that followed defied every principle of traditional space warfare. Human ships appeared and disappeared using stealth technology that bent light itself. Alien vessels used their unique capabilities in ways that confused and disrupted hunger coordination. Most importantly, mixed crews fought with an effectiveness that surprised even veteran human commanders. Captain Min-ho led his destroyer in a suicidal charge against a hunger battleship 3 times his size. But instead of following predictable attack patterns, his Velkari crew sang their war songs while firing weapons in rhythm with the ancient melodies. The psychological effect on the biomechanical enemy was devastating. "They cannot process non-logical combat patterns," he reported to the fleet. "Their collective consciousness tries to find mathematical solutions to emotional responses." Meanwhile, Captain Seok-jin began his approach to the consciousness node. The Eternal Vigil slipped through the battle using every stealth system human technology could provide. But the closer he got to the target, the more aggressive the Hunger's attempts to absorb his crew became. "Captain," Engineer Dong-wook reported, his voice strained, "I am detecting direct neural assault attempts. The Hunger is trying to access our consciousness through the ship's computer systems." Lieutenant Hyojin activated the neural isolation protocols that human ships had used for 2 centuries. All crew maintain mental barriers. Do not allow unified thoughts. Think random personal memories. The technique worked, but the cost was enormous. Fighting off collective consciousness absorption while maintaining ship operations pushed the crew to their limits. One by one, crew members collapsed under the mental strain. Throughout the larger battle, the combined fleet was paying a terrible price. Hunger ships that were destroyed simply reformed from available matter. Enemy vessels that were damaged absorbed nearby debris to repair themselves. Worst of all, fallen crew members who were not immediately recovered became weapons the Hunger could use against their former allies. General Yunji led her assault troops in boarding actions that resembled nightmares more than military operations. Inside Hunger vessels, the very walls tried to absorb organic beings. Biological weapons turned friendly fire against attacking forces. Most horrible of all, perfect copies of fallen comrades fought against the boarding parties. Squad 7, "That is not really Chenwu," she broadcast as her troops hesitated before a perfect duplicate of their fallen squad leader. The real Chenwu would want you to complete the mission. But even human neural modifications had their limits. Troops who had spent too long fighting inside Hunger vessels began showing signs of consciousness integration. Their individual personalities started blending with the collective. Dr. Ji Hai monitored the quantum disruptor from her position aboard the Eternal Vigil as Captain Seok Jin's ship approached the consciousness node. The massive biomechanical structure filled their viewports, its surface crawling with organic circuits that pulsed with alien intelligence. Range to target, 1,000 kilometers, Captain Seok Jin reported. Quantum disruptor charging for final activation. The consciousness node sensed their approach and began launching every defense at its disposal. Biomechanical fighters swarmed around the Eternal Vigil, like antibodies attacking a virus. Directed energy weapons that could rewrite matter at the molecular level focused on the approaching ship. Hull integrity failing, Engineer Dong-wook called out as his console exploded in sparks. We are losing life support on decks 3 through 7. Lieutenant Hyojin continued firing the ship's weapons even as her station filled with smoke. Target their neural control nodes. Disrupt their coordination. The ship shuddered under impacts that would have destroyed any other vessel. But human engineering had prepared the Eternal Vigil for this moment. Every system had backups. Every critical component was protected by armor that incorporated materials from beyond the galactic rim. 500 kilometers to target, Captain Seok Jin announced. Dr. Ji Hai, prepare for quantum disruptor activation. The scientist's hands moved across her controls with practiced precision. Disruptor armed. Quantum matrix stable. Captain, we have one chance at this. Around them, the consciousness node's defenses intensified. The very space around the ship began to warp as the Hunger attempted to use gravitational weapons. But Captain Seok Jin had flown through worse conditions during 2 centuries of warfare in the dark between galaxies. 100 kilometers, he called out. All hands, prepare for impact. The Eternal Vigil smashed through the consciousness node's outer defenses like a spear thrown by an angry god. Inside the massive structure, they found themselves surrounded by organic technology that defied comprehension. Living computers that processed information faster than light. Neural networks that spanned kilometers. This is it, Dr. Ji Hai announced. The quantum entanglement nexus. If we can disrupt this, their entire collective consciousness will collapse. Captain Seok Jin maneuvered the dying ship into the heart of the structure. Around them, the consciousness node's immune system tried desperately to stop the invasion. Biomechanical repair units swarmed over the ship's hull, trying to absorb it into the greater structure. Quantum disruptor ready, Dr. Ji Hai reported. But Captain, someone needs to manually activate the device. The ship's systems are too damaged for remote detonation. Captain Seok Jin looked at his dying crew, at the humans and aliens who had sacrificed everything to reach this moment. He thought of Earth, the world he had never seen but carried in his genetic memory. He thought of the countless species who would live free if this mission succeeded. For Earth, he said quietly into his communicator, knowing that Admiral Tae-hyun would hear his words across the battle. For the family we lost. For the family we found. For the family we protect. He activated the quantum disruptor manually, sending exotic matter cascading through the consciousness node's neural networks. The effect was immediate and devastating. Across the entire Hunger fleet, millions of biomechanical ships suddenly stopped moving as their collective intelligence shattered. The first joint Human Confederation military exercise took place in the asteroid fields near the Outer Rim. General Eunji watched from the command ship as alien soldiers tried to adapt to human tactical doctrine. What she saw both impressed and worried her. "Your people are brave," she told Admiral Kyung-soo as they observed Velkari troops practicing urban combat scenarios. "But bravery alone will not be enough against the Hunger." The Velkari soldiers moved with precision and discipline, following textbook procedures for building-to-building fighting. General Eunji shook her head and activated her communicator. "Squad leader, you are thinking like soldiers fighting other soldiers. The Hunger does not follow military logic. They will come through the walls, through the floors, through ventilation systems you never considered as attack routes." To demonstrate, she activated a holographic training program that showed Hunger infiltrator units in action. The biomechanical creatures flowed like liquid through the smallest openings, reformed themselves into perfect copies of friendly forces, and used psychological manipulation as effectively as physical weapons. Captain Min-ho participated in the training exercises with a mixture of excitement and terror. His human genetic heritage seemed to awaken during combat simulations, giving him insights that his pure alien comrades could not match. "You are starting to think like one of us," General Eunji observed after watching him improvise a solution to an impossible tactical scenario. "The human genes are not just about physical enhancement. They change how you process information under stress." Commander Hee Young's investigation into Hunger infiltration revealed the true scope of the threat they faced. Working with human intelligence specialists, she discovered that the enemy had been operating in Confederation space far longer than anyone suspected. "The pattern is subtle, but consistent," she reported to the Emergency Council. "Key personnel in critical positions have been replaced over the past 50 years. Scientists working on defense projects, politicians making strategic decisions, military commanders with access to classified information." Bioengineer Sang-woo made an even more disturbing discovery while analyzing captured Hunger specimens. The infiltrator units were not simple copies. They retained partial memories and personality traits from their original targets, making them almost perfect replacements. "They don't just mimic appearance," he explained to the assembled scientists. "They absorb and integrate the consciousness of everything they replace. In many cases, the infiltrator genuinely believes it is the original person." Dr. Hyun-woo, working with human genetic specialists, uncovered the biological mechanisms that made humans so effective against the Hunger. Their modified neural architecture allowed them to detect quantum signature variations that indicated infiltrator presence. "It's not a conscious ability," he explained to Admiral Tae-hyun. "Humans simply feel uncomfortable around Hunger agents, an instinctive recognition that something is wrong, even when they cannot identify what it is." The training exercises revealed another crucial advantage humans possessed. Their capacity for emotional bonding extended beyond their own species, allowing them to form genuine connections with alien allies. More importantly, these bonds made mixed species units more effective than purely alien formations. "Watch how they fight when humans are present," General Eunji pointed out during a particularly intense combat simulation. "The alien soldiers push themselves beyond their normal limits. They take risks they would never consider alone." Admiral Kyung-soo saw it too. Velkari troops who normally retreated when facing overwhelming odds instead held their positions when fighting alongside humans. Tethran engineers worked faster and more creatively when human technicians shared their workspace. "How do you do it?" he asked Admiral Tae-hyun during a brief respite between exercises. "We believe in you," the human replied simply. "Not your species, not your government, not your military doctrine. We believe in you as individuals worth protecting. That belief becomes contagious." But the exercises also revealed the terrible cost of human combat effectiveness. Captain Minho watched in horror as human soldiers pushed themselves to the point of physical breakdown. They fought with injuries that should have been incapacitating. They made tactical decisions that required them to sacrifice their own safety for marginal advantages. "This is not sustainable," he told General Yunji after watching a human squad leader continue fighting with what should have been fatal wounds. "No," she agreed quietly. "It is not. We have been dying for 2 centuries, one battle at a time. Our population has fallen from billions to millions. Soon there will not be enough of us left to hold the line." The human revelation that shocked the Confederation leadership most was the true nature of their long exile. Admiral Tae-hyun finally revealed the complete terms of the compact made 200 years ago. "We did not just agree to fight the hunger," he told the assembled council. "We agreed to become them if necessary." The silence that followed was deafening. Admiral Jun-ho was the first to speak. "What do you mean?" "The ultimate contingency plan," Admiral Tae-hyun explained. "If the hunger could not be defeated by conventional means, we would allow ourselves to be consumed, and then fight them from within their collective consciousness. Our neural modifications make us capable of maintaining individual identity, even after absorption." Dr. Hyun-woo stared at the human admiral in horror. "You would sacrifice your own consciousness to save others?" "We would sacrifice everything," General Yoonji confirmed. "That is what it means to be human." Meanwhile, long-range sensors brought increasingly dire reports. The Hunger Fleet had reached the galaxy's edge and begun their advance toward populated systems. Entire star clusters went dark as the biomechanical entities consumed everything in their path. Commander Hee-young coordinated intelligence reports from across the galaxy. The picture that emerged was terrifying in its scope. The hunger had grown beyond anything humans had fought before. They had consumed at least 3 other galaxies during their exile, incorporating the knowledge and capabilities of countless species. "They have learned to use quantum tunneling for instantaneous travel," she reported. "Biological weapons that can restructure matter at the molecular level. Worst of all, they have developed the ability to corrupt AI systems and turn them into extensions of their collective consciousness." Bioengineer Sang-woo made a discovery that offered a glimmer of hope. The hunger's greatest strength was also their weakness. Their collective consciousness depended on quantum entanglement networks that spanned galactic distances. "If we can disrupt these networks," he explained, "the hunger will revert to individual biological components. They will lose their coordination and superior intelligence." Dr. Ji Hai, a brilliant scientist who had been working with both human and Confederation researchers, developed the theoretical basis for a quantum disruption weapon. But the device would require a delivery system that could penetrate to the heart of the Hunger Fleet. "The quantum disruptor must be placed inside their primary consciousness node," she explained. "The moon-sized structure at the center of their formation. Nothing we have can survive that kind of direct assault." Admiral Tae-hyun studied the tactical requirements with the calm acceptance of someone who had always expected to die in battle. "A suicide mission. Not just suicide," General Yoonji added. "The person delivering the weapon would need to maintain consciousness during the approach. The hunger will try to absorb them before they can complete the mission." Captain Minho felt his human heritage calling to him. The same instincts that had awakened during training exercises now demanded that he volunteer for the impossible mission. But Admiral Tae-hyun refused his offer. "This requires someone with full human neural modifications," the Admiral explained. "Someone who has spent their entire life learning to resist collective consciousness absorption." As the Hunger Fleet advanced deeper into the galaxy, civilian populations began evacuating core worlds. The Confederation's greatest ships moved to intercept the enemy, but everyone knew they were buying time rather than seeking victory. Captain Seok Jin, one of the most experienced human ship commanders, volunteered to lead the final mission. His vessel, the Eternal Vigil, had been modified with the quantum disruptor and enough armor to reach the target. "This is what we came home for," he told his mixed human-alien crew. "Not to die as heroes, but to ensure that others can live." as themselves. The final preparations took place in the shadow of approaching doom. Hunger scouts had already reached the outer colonies, conducting reconnaissance for the main fleet. Reports from the front lines painted a picture of horror beyond imagination. The enemy did not simply kill. They absorbed their victims, adding their knowledge and memories to the collective consciousness. Every person they consumed made them smarter, more adaptable, more dangerous. But humanity had prepared for this moment for 2 centuries. Deep in their hidden bases, the last children of Earth made ready for their final battle. They had become living weapons, biological missiles aimed at the heart of ultimate evil. General Yunji addressed the combined Human Confederation forces one last time before the battle began. We have fought this enemy for 200 years. We know their capabilities and their weaknesses. Most importantly, we know that the neutral meeting station hung in space between the human fleet and Confederation forces, like a bridge between 2 different eras. Admiral Kyung-soo commanded the largest defensive formation in galactic history, while Dr. Hai-wan worked frantically to establish meaningful communication with beings who had become legends. Admiral Tae-hyun arrived at the station aboard a small human transport that moved through space like a hunting predator. When the docking bay doors opened, the Confederation representatives got their first close look at humanity in 2 centuries. The humans were exactly as the myths described, yet somehow more. Tall and pale, with eyes that seemed to see everything at once. They moved with deadly grace, every gesture controlled and purposeful. Even their casual actions suggested violence held in careful restraint. Honored representatives of the Confederation, Admiral Tae-hyun spoke in perfect Confederation standard, though his accent carried traces of a dozen alien languages. I am Admiral Tae-hyun, speaking for the Terran Expeditionary Force and the scattered children of Earth. Dr. Hae-won leaned forward in her seat. Admiral, our records suggest that humanity died out over 2 centuries ago. How is it that you have survived? The human's scarred face showed something that might have been sadness. We did not die, Dr. Hae-won. We accepted exile. When the hunger first probed our galaxy's defenses, the Confederation's greatest minds calculated that resistance was impossible. Every simulation showed total defeat within months. Admiral Kyung-soo interrupted. Then how did you succeed where our projections showed failure? Because humans do not accept impossible odds. Tae-hyun replied simply. We volunteered to establish a buffer zone beyond the galactic rim. Our entire civilization relocated to the dark space between galaxies, where we could intercept the hunger before it reached populated systems. He activated a holographic display that filled the station's main conference room. The images showed a war unlike anything the Confederation had ever imagined. Massive biomechanical entities consuming entire star systems, human fleets conducting running battles across impossible distances, worlds deliberately destroyed to deny resources to the enemy. The hunger is not a traditional military force, Tae-hyun explained. They are a collective consciousness that consumes all organic matter and converts it into extensions of themselves. Every creature they kill becomes a weapon they can use against you. Captain Minho, attending as a junior observer, felt his newly discovered human heritage stirring as he watched the battle recordings. The tactical displays showed human forces using strategies that defied conventional military doctrine. Ships, deliberately sacrificing themselves to save others. Ground forces holding impossible positions through sheer determination. Your people fight like demons, Admiral Kyung-soo observed with professional respect. We fight like humans, Tae-hyun corrected. It is what we were designed for. Dr. Hyun-woo had been studying the human delegation with scientific fascination. Admiral, our analysis suggests your people have undergone extensive genetic modification. Was this done to fight the hunger? Partially, Tae-hyun nodded. But humans were already unusual by galactic standards. We bonded across species lines, in ways that other races found impossible. We formed emotional connections with beings completely unlike ourselves. Most importantly, we refused to abandon our allies even when logic demanded retreat. General Unji, The human ground forces commander stepped forward. She was smaller than Admiral Tae-hyun but radiated the same controlled lethality. The modifications came later, when we realized that fighting the hunger required capabilities beyond normal biology. We enhanced our strength, our healing, our ability to survive in hostile environments. But the most important modification, she continued, was to our neural architecture. The hunger communicates through quantum consciousness networks that drive most organic minds insane. Humans developed the ability to interface with these networks while maintaining our individual identity. Admiral Kyung-soo felt a chill run down his spine. You mean you can think like them? When necessary, General Yoonji replied. It is the only way to predict their strategies and counter their attacks. But the cost is significant. Every human who interfaces with the hunger network loses a piece of their sanity. Commander Hee-young, the Confederation's intelligence chief, had been quietly analyzing human communications during the meeting. What she discovered changed everything they thought they knew about recent galactic history. Admiral Tae-hyun, she said suddenly, our AI systems have been activating hidden programs throughout Confederation space. Programs that use protocols your people created. How long have you been preparing for this moment? The human admiral's expression became grim. The treaty we signed 200 years ago included contingency plans for our return, sleeper programs hidden in every major computer system, automated defense protocols built into orbital platforms, supply caches hidden throughout the galaxy. You have been manipulating our infrastructure for centuries? Admiral Kyung-soo demanded. We have been preparing to save your lives, Tae-hyun replied firmly. The hunger has spent 200 years adapting to our tactics. They have developed new forms of attack, new ways to corrupt and consume. The methods that contained them for 2 centuries are no longer sufficient. Bioengineer Sang-woo, who had been analyzing captured hunger specimens in secret, spoke up for the first time. Admiral, I have been studying the biological samples recovered from your battles. The entity you call the hunger appears to be capable of perfect mimicry. How do we know it has not already infiltrated our society? The silence that followed his question was deafening. General Yoonji and Admiral Tae-hyun exchanged glances that spoke volumes about shared secrets and terrible knowledge. Dr. Sang-woo, General Yoonji said slowly, what you have discovered is correct. Hunger infiltrator units have been seeding themselves throughout Confederation space for decades. The real war began years ago. You simply did not know you were fighting it. Captain Minho felt his human heritage stirring again as the implications became clear. How many? Unknown, Admiral Tae-hyun replied. Possibly thousands. They can perfectly mimic any species, copy memories and personalities with complete accuracy. The only way to detect them is through quantum signature analysis that requires human-modified neural interfaces. Dr. Hae-won looked around the room with new suspicion. Could one of us be a hunger agent right now? Possible but unlikely, General Yoonji answered. They typically target isolated individuals or small groups. A gathering of this size would be too risky for infiltration. The human delegation shared another concerning revelation. The approaching hunger fleet was not just larger than anything they had fought before. It was fundamentally different. 2 centuries of warfare had taught the enemy how to counter human tactics. They have learned to adapt their biomechanical forms in real time, Admiral Tae-hyun explained. Ships that can reconfigure themselves during battle. Weapons that evolve to counter our defenses. Worst of all, they have developed psychological warfare techniques specifically designed to exploit human emotional bonds. What do you mean? Admiral Kyung-soo asked. They create perfect copies of our fallen comrades and send them against us in battle. They use our own capacity for love and loyalty as weapons. Every human who sees a friend or family member fighting for the enemy loses a portion of their combat effectiveness. Captain Minho understood now why humans had become myths. Their greatest strength was also their greatest weakness. The same emotional bonds that allowed them to fight impossible battles also made them vulnerable to manipulation. General Yoonji began displaying tactical information that made the assembled military leaders reconsider everything they knew about warfare. Human combat doctrine emphasized adaptability over overwhelming force. They specialized in turning enemy strengths into weaknesses, finding victory conditions that existed outside conventional strategic thinking. You will need to unlearn much of what you believe about military tactics, she warned. The Hunger does not think like biological creatures. They are a collective intelligence that processes information faster than any individual mind. Traditional battle plans become obsolete within minutes of engagement. Then how do we fight them? Admiral Kyung-soo demanded. With chaos, Admiral Tae-hyun replied. Humans excel at improvisation, at making decisions that appear irrational but achieve unexpected results. We will teach your forces to embrace uncertainty, to find advantage in confusion. As the meeting continued, long-range sensors brought increasingly disturbing reports. The Hunger fleet was massive beyond previous estimates. Millions of biomechanical ships moving in perfect coordination. Energy readings that suggested they were consuming everything in their path to fuel their advance. But perhaps most terrifying was the discovery that they were not alone. Behind the main Hunger fleet, sensors detected something even larger. A structure the size of a small moon, made entirely of living tissue and mechanical components fused together in ways that violated natural law. The Hunger Prime, Admiral Tae-hyun said when he saw the readings. We have never encountered one this large before. It represents the collective consciousness of everything the Hunger has consumed in our galaxy over the past millennia. Dr. Sang-woo studied the sensor. Fleet Admiral Soo-jin stood before the largest gathering of military leaders in Confederation history. Representatives from all 12 member species filled the secure briefing room on the fortress world of Sanctuary Prime. The news from Dr. Yuna's expedition had reached the highest levels of government within hours. The situation is unprecedented, Admiral Soo-jin began, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was about to reveal. We are not dealing with the return of an extinct species. We are facing the possibility that everything we know about galactic history is wrong. She activated the central holographic display, showing the data recovered from the human monitoring station. The assembled officers watched in silence as combat reports, tactical analyses, and threat assessments filled the space above them. These records suggest that humans have been conducting military operations in the void for over 2 centuries. They have technology that surpasses our own by generations. Most importantly, they claim to be protecting us from something they call the Hunger. General Kwan Ho of the Tethran Defense Corps raised one of his 6 arms. Admiral, with respect, how do we know this is not an elaborate deception? These humans could be planning an invasion. Dr. Hyun-woo, the Confederation's leading xenobiologist, spoke from his position near the data displays. I have analyzed the genetic samples recovered by Dr. Yuna's team. The biological impossibilities are real. Humans show evidence of deliberate, genetic modification on a scale we cannot achieve. He gestured to a detailed chromosome map floating in the air. Redundant organ systems that allow them to survive injuries that would kill any known species. Enhanced muscle density that gives them strength far beyond their apparent size. Accelerated healing factors that can repair damage in hours rather than days. But perhaps most significant, Dr. Hyun-woo continued, their neural architecture shows modifications that allow them to maintain individual consciousness while linked to quantum communication networks. This should drive any organic brain insane, yet humans have clearly adapted to use this technology. Admiral Soo-jin nodded, grimly. If these modifications are real, then humans are not just another spacefaring species. They are biological weapons, engineered for combat in environments that would destroy the rest of us. Across the galaxy, the strange incidents were increasing. Merchant Captain Wu Jin's experience was no longer unique. AI systems throughout Confederation space were activating hidden programs. Ancient automated systems that had been dormant for centuries suddenly came online with a single purpose. On the agricultural world of New Harvest, farming robots began constructing defensive positions around major cities. On the mining colonies of the asteroid belt, excavation equipment started digging massive underground bunkers. Most disturbing of all, orbital defense platforms that had been offline for decades suddenly activated and began targeting empty space. Captain Minho, serving aboard the battleship Steadfast Honor, made a discovery that changed his understanding of his own identity. While reviewing genetic compatibility protocols for potential alien contact, the computer flagged his DNA profile for special attention. Genetic markers indicate probable human ancestry, the screen displayed. Classification: hybrid descendant. Estimated integration: 12.7% human genetic material. Minho stared at the results in shock. He was not alone. Medical scans throughout the fleet revealed that nearly 10% of Confederation personnel carried human genetic markers, evidence of extensive interbreeding before the Great Silence. "How is this possible?" he asked Dr. Hyunwoo during an emergency medical briefing. "It suggests that humans and Confederation species lived together for an extended period," the scientist explained. "There was significant cultural and genetic exchange before they disappeared." Commander Taemin, meanwhile, had uncovered something even more disturbing in the Velkari military archives. The Great Silence had not been a period of lost records. It had been a deliberate purge, ordered by the highest levels of government. The old war songs told a different story than official history. According to the ancient verses, the Velkari had fought alongside humans in a great war against creatures from beyond the galactic rim. The humans had not abandoned their allies. They had volunteered for a mission so dangerous that success required them to be forgotten. "They made a deal," Taemin reported to Admiral Junho in a private meeting. "The humans would exile themselves beyond the rim to create a buffer zone against something called the Hunger. In exchange, all records of their existence would be erased to protect the knowledge of their sacrifice." Dr. Haewon, the Confederation's chief communications specialist, achieved a breakthrough that confirmed their worst fears. The human ships in the void were broadcasting on frequencies that matched ancient Velkari military channels. The message protocols were 200 years old, but still functional. "We have established communication," she announced to the Emergency Council. "The humans are requesting permission to enter Confederation space. They claim the threat they have been containing is about to break through their defensive perimeter." The message from the human fleet was brief, but terrifying. "By the old compact we return. The hunger stirs beyond the rim. Prepare for war." Long range. Sensors began detecting anomalous readings from the edge of the galaxy. Energy signatures unlike anything in the databases. Movement patterns that suggested massive objects traveling at impossible speeds. Whatever the humans had been fighting was finally making its move. Admiral Soo-jin made the decision that would define her career and possibly the fate of the galaxy. "Grant the humans permission to enter our space. Prepare the fleet for full mobilization. If they have been protecting us for 2 centuries, we owe them our support." The human fleet appeared at the edge of Confederation space 3 days later. Even the most experienced military officers gasped at what they saw. Hundreds of vessels ranging from small scouts to massive dreadnoughts that dwarfed anything in Confederation service. The ships themselves were works of art and war. Their hulls seemed to flow like liquid metal, adapting their shape for maximum efficiency. Weapon systems that bent space itself to deliver devastating attacks. Defensive screens that turned incoming fire into harmless light. But it was the lead vessel that captured everyone's attention. The human flagship was enormous, larger than some space stations. Its hull bore scars from countless battles, each mark telling the story of 2 centuries of constant warfare. A single video message was broadcast to every ship in the Confederation fleet. A human figure appeared on their screens, tall and pale, with predatory eyes that seemed to look directly into their souls. This was Admiral Tae-hyun of the Terran Expeditionary Force. "People of the Confederation," he began, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. "I am Admiral Tae-hyun, son of Earth, guardian of the dark between. For 200 years my people have held the line against forces that would devour your worlds." The Admiral's face showed the cost of that guardianship, scars from weapons that left marks on souls as well as flesh, eyes that had seen horrors beyond imagination, hands that had made decisions no being should ever have to make. "The compact our ancestors made is now fulfilled. We have contained the hunger for as long as possible, but they have adapted, grown stronger, learned new ways to kill and consume. The buffer zone is failing. Behind Admiral Tae Hyun, the bridge of his ship showed the cost of their long war. Human crew members who moved with the efficient precision of born killers, weapon stations that could end civilizations, battle damage that spoke of desperate fights in the darkness between stars. We return not as conquerors, but as the defenders we have always been. The hunger comes, and we will stand with our sworn allies one final time. But understand this. The war that is coming will test every species in this galaxy. Only together can we survive what approaches. As if summoned by his words, the long-range sensors detected something that made even the human vessels seem small. Behind their fleet, moving through the dark space beyond the galactic rim, energy signatures appeared that defied comprehension. The hunger was real, it was massive, and it was coming. Bioengineer Sang Woo, working frantically with recovered human technology, made a discovery that chilled him to the bone. The energy signatures matched theoretical models of biomechanical entities, creatures that consumed entire ecosystems and converted them into extensions of their own consciousness. This is not an invasion, he reported to the Emergency Council. This is digestion. They intend to consume our entire galaxy and turn it into part of themselves. The galaxy was about to learn why humans had become myths. They were not just warriors. They were the apex predators who stood between civilization and the ultimate predator. And now, for the first time in 2 centuries, they were coming home to fight their last battle. Captain So Young checked her instruments one more time. The research vessel Endless Inquiry was ready to jump into hyperspace. Behind her, Dr. Yuna and her team prepared their equipment for the most dangerous expedition in recent history. You sure about this course? Engineer Dong-wook asked from his station. His 6 Tethran arms moved quickly across multiple control panels at once. The void margin has swallowed 3 ships in the last decade. Dr. Yuna looked up from her research notes. This is our only chance to find proof. If humans really existed, their home territories would be in that region. Captain So Young nodded and gave the order. Jump. The stars stretched into lines, and space folded around them. When the jump ended, they found themselves in the strangest region of known space. Here, between the galaxy's edge and the empty void, darkness ruled everything. Sensors are picking up something unusual, Engineer Dong-wook reported. Large debris field approximately 50,000 kilometers ahead. Take us closer, Dr. Yuna ordered, but carefully. As they approached, their instruments revealed something amazing. The debris was not natural asteroids or space junk. These were the remains of starships, but unlike any design in current galactic databases, the metal composition is impossible, Dong-wook said, his voice filled with wonder. It is stronger than our best battle armor but lighter than civilian hull plating. How did they make this? Captain So Young maneuvered the ship between the larger pieces of wreckage. Through the viewports they could see the twisted remains of what had once been mighty vessels. Some fragments were as large as buildings. These were not exploration ships, Dr. Yuna observed. Look at the weapon damage. These ships were built for war. The evidence was everywhere. Burn marks from directed energy weapons. Holes punched through thick armor by kinetic rounds. Most disturbing of all, signs of biological contamination that had eaten through metal like acid. Whatever fought here, Captain So Young said quietly, it was not a normal space battle. This looks like a last stand. Engineer Dong-wook brought several smaller fragments aboard for analysis. Under the laboratory microscopes, the human technology revealed its secrets. The weapon systems were incredibly advanced. Energy distributors that could channel power more efficiently than anything in current use. Armor plating with self-repair capabilities. But the most shocking discovery came when they found intact data cores. The information inside was encrypted, but Dr. Yuna had been studying human language patterns for years. Slowly, she began to decode the files. These are tactical reports, she announced to the team. Battle plans and troop movements. But look at what they were fighting. The data described an enemy unlike anything in known history. Biological ships that could grow and adapt. weapons that turned living creatures into mindless slaves. Worst of all, the reports mentioned that this enemy was not from their galaxy. They came from outside, Dr. Yuna whispered. From the dark, space between galaxies, and the humans were fighting them. Meanwhile, back in Confederation space, Jinwoo worked alone in the deepest levels of the Central Archives. As the archive keeper, he had access to information that most people did not know existed. Tonight, his ancient computers were acting, very strangely. Systems that had been dormant for centuries were suddenly coming online. Quantum processors that used technology beyond current understanding began running programs. Jinwoo watched in amazement as data flowed across screens faster than he could read. The programs were countdowns, hundreds of them, all reaching 0 at different times. Some had already finished. Others would complete their cycles in the coming days. Jinwoo realized that someone had set these programs running 200 years ago, and they had been waiting patiently ever since. One message appeared on his main screen. Archive Keeper, prepare the sealed records for Phase 7 activation. Authorization, Omega Protocol. Jinwoo had never heard of the Omega Protocol. He searched through every database he could access but found nothing. Whoever had created these programs had authority levels beyond anything in current Confederation structure. Back on Nexus Prime, Commander Taemin noticed unusual ship movements throughout the outer systems. Military vessels were quietly changing positions. Supply convoys were moving toward strategic locations. Admiral Jun Ho was recalling experienced officers from retirement. Something big was happening, but the orders were classified at the highest levels. Even Commander Taemin's security clearance was not high enough to access the full briefings. He decided to investigate on his own. Using his personal connections in the Velkari military, he began piecing together fragments of information. Emergency supply requests, weapons system upgrades. Most telling of all, orders to review ancient defense protocols that had not been used since the founding of the Confederation. In the Outer Rim systems, civilian merchant Captain Wu Jin experienced something that would haunt him for the rest of his life. His cargo ship was making a routine run between mining colonies when every computer on board suddenly shut down. When the systems came back online, his ship's artificial intelligence spoke in a language he had never heard before. The words were strange and flowing, with sharp consonants that seemed to cut through the air. Then, just as suddenly, everything returned to normal. Captain Wu Jin reported the incident to the authorities, but they dismissed it as a software glitch. Similar reports began coming in from across 12 star systems. AI speaking in unknown languages, computer systems accessing hidden programs, ships receiving navigation data for coordinates that existed in no star charts. Dr. Yuna's expedition in the void margin made another disturbing discovery. Hidden among the debris field, they found something that should not exist: an intact human monitoring station. The station was small, barely large enough for a single person. It had been running on automated systems for decades, possibly centuries. When they finally managed to access its computers, they found logs that made their blood run cold. Monitoring post Gamma 7, day 73-49 of the watch, one entry read: no sign of hunger activity in local space. Defensive perimeter holding, awaiting orders from command. The logs went on for years. The same person, or possibly multiple people, taking shifts, watching the empty void for signs of something called the hunger. The final entry was only days old. Long-range sensors detect Confederation research vessel in debris field Alpha 12. Initiating contact protocols. Beginning Phase 7 transmission sequence. Engineer Dongwook's instruments suddenly came alive with alerts. Captain, we are receiving a transmission. The source is impossible. It is coming from everywhere, at once. The message was simple but chilling. Confederation vessel, you have entered restricted space. Withdraw immediately or prepare for contact with monitoring station personnel. The compact still holds. Captain So Young looked at Dr. Yuna with wide eyes. There are still humans out here. Before anyone could respond, their sensors detected something that violated everything they knew about physics. A ship was approaching their position, but it was not showing up on any of their scanning equipment. They could see it through the viewports, but their computers insisted that nothing was there. The human ship was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Its hull seemed to bend light around it, making it difficult to focus on directly. Weapons, ports opened along its sides, revealing technology that made their most advanced systems look like children's toys. "Confederation research vessel," a voice said over their communication system. "This is Monitor Commander Juan of the Terran Watch. You will explain your presence in this restricted zone." Dr. Yuna grabbed the communication device with shaking hands. "This is Dr. Yuna of the Galactic Archaeological Society. We are searching for evidence of human civilization." There was a long pause. Then the human voice spoke again, and this time it sounded different. Older, sadder. "Dr. Yuna, your search is over. We never left. We have been watching the dark places, keeping the ancient enemies at bay, but our time in the shadows is ending." "What do you mean?" Dr. Yuna asked. "The hunger stirs beyond the galactic rim. The creatures we have fought for 2 centuries are preparing for their final assault. We are returning to warn the Confederation." Through their viewports, they could see more human ships appearing in the distance. Ships that had been hidden in the void, waiting and watching. An entire fleet that had protected the galaxy from threats no one else knew existed. "How many of you are there?" Captain So Young asked. "Enough," Commander Juan replied, "but perhaps not enough for what is coming. We need to speak with your leaders immediately." In that moment, the galaxy learned that humans had never been myths. They had been guardians, standing watch in the darkness between the stars. And now they were coming home, bringing warnings of a war that would decide the fate of every living creature in the galaxy. The age of legends was ending. The age of survival was about to begin. The Great Hall of Nexus Prime buzzed with excited voices. Scientists from 12 different worlds had gathered for the most important meeting of the year. Dr. Yuna stood at the center stage, her hands shaking slightly as she looked at the crowd. Today she would present something that could change everything they knew about the galaxy. Commander Taemin sat in the back row, his dark uniform making him almost invisible in the shadows. He was not supposed to be here. Military officers rarely attended science meetings, but something about Dr. Yuna's research had caught his attention. The invitation mentioned humans, and that word made his heart race. "Ladies and gentlemen," Dr. Yuna began, her voice clear and strong. "For the past 5 years I have been studying fragments of data found in the outer rim systems. What I discovered will shock you all." She pressed a button, and a large screen appeared behind her. Strange symbols glowed in the darkness. The audience leaned forward, trying to understand what they were seeing. "These are not random scratches on metal," she continued. "They are words, written in a language that belongs to a species we thought was just a story. These symbols spell out one word: Earth." A wave of whispers swept through the hall. Earth was a name from old legends. Children heard stories about humans before bedtime, but everyone knew they were just tales to teach lessons about bravery and friendship. Dr. Yuna showed more images: strange weapons made of metal and wood, data cores containing star maps of regions no one had ever explored. Most shocking of all, she displayed genetic samples that matched no known species in the galaxy. "The humans were real," she said firmly. "They lived, they fought, and they disappeared, but they left traces behind." Professor Kang Ho, the head of the Archaeological Society, stood up from his seat. His 6 eyes all focused on Dr. Yuna with obvious doubt. "This is impossible," he declared. "Humans are biological impossibilities. 2-legged creatures cannot achieve spaceflight. Their supposed pack-bonding behavior goes against all evolution rules." Other scientists nodded in agreement. Dr. Yuna had expected this reaction. For centuries, every expert had explained why humans could not exist. They were too weak, too emotional, too strange to survive in space. But Commander Taemin remembered something different. His people, the Velkari, had old war songs. Songs about pale warriors who came from the void to fight beside them against the Devourers. The Devourers were another myth, or so everyone believed. They were supposed to be monsters that ate entire worlds. After the presentation ended, most scientists left the hall shaking their heads. Dr. Yuna packed her equipment slowly, disappointed but not surprised. Only one person approached her. "Admiral Junho," she said, recognizing the elderly military leader. "I did not expect to see you here." The admiral's ancient face was serious. His silver hair caught the light as he moved closer. "Dr. Yuna, walk with me. There are things you need to know." They left the building together, walking through the busy streets of Nexus Prime. Alien merchants sold goods from across the galaxy. Children from different species played together in the parks. Everything seemed peaceful and normal. "Tell me," Admiral Junho said quietly, "what do you know about the Great Silence?" Dr. Yuna frowned. It was a period about 200 years ago when many records were lost. Some kind of data corruption, according to the history books. "The history books lie," the Admiral said simply. "The Great Silence was not an accident. Someone deliberately destroyed those records. They wanted to erase all memory of something important. They stopped walking near a fountain in the center of the city." Admiral Junho looked around carefully, making sure no one was listening. "Deep in the Confederation archives, there are sealed files from that time. Files that only the highest-ranking officials can access. Most contain nothing but empty data streams, but one file survived. It contains a single transmission." "What did it say?" Dr. Yuna asked, her heart beating faster. "The humans have gone dark. May the galaxy forgive us." Dr. Yuna stared at him in shock. "That means they were real. They were alive 200 years ago." "Yes," Admiral Junho nodded. "And something happened to them. Something so terrible that all records had to be destroyed." Meanwhile, Commander Taman returned to his ship in orbit around Nexus Prime. He could not stop thinking about Dr. Yuna's presentation. In his private quarters, he opened a secure connection to the Velkari military archives. The old war songs were classified information. Most people thought they were just entertainment, but military historians knew better. Every song told the story of a real battle, and many of those songs mentioned the Pale Warriors. He found the song he was looking for. "The Last Stand at Kethmori." It told of a great battle against the Devourers, where Velkari ships fought alongside mysterious allies. The allies had strange ships and stranger weapons. They fought like demons, never retreating, never surrendering. The most interesting part was the ending. After the battle was won, the Pale Warriors disappeared. They said they had to return to the dark places between stars. They promised to come back if the Devourers ever returned. Commander Taman read the ancient words again and again. Could these Pale Warriors really be humans? Were they still out there somewhere, watching and waiting? Back on the planet, Dr. Yuna met with Admiral Junho in a secure facility. He showed her documents that made her hands shake. Pictures of strange weapons, reports of impossible military tactics, analysis of genetic samples that matched her own discoveries. The humans were not just another spacefaring species, Admiral Junho explained. They were apex predators. They fought wars in ways that other species could not understand. They bonded with alien allies and made them fight harder than they ever thought possible. "But where did they go?" Dr. Yuna asked. "That is what we need to find out," the Admiral replied. "I am funding an expedition to the Void Margin, the empty space where human territories supposedly existed. You will lead the research team." Dr. Yuna felt excited and terrified at the same time. The Void Margin was dangerous. Ships that went there often never returned. But if humans were real, that was where the answers would be found. Far away from Nexus Prime in the cold darkness between galaxies, something stirred. Ancient machines that had been sleeping for 2 centuries began to wake up. Deep inside massive structures hidden in the void, lights started to glow. Automated systems ran diagnostic checks on weapons that could destroy stars. Computer programs that had been counting down for 200 years reached important milestones. Messages began to move through quantum networks that spanned impossible distances. One message was very simple, but its meaning would change everything. Contact confirmed. Begin Phase 7. On a monitoring station hidden in an asteroid field, a single human technician sat alone. He had been waiting his entire life for this moment. His grandfather had waited before him, and his great-grandfather before that. For 200 years his family had maintained their watch. He looked at the message on his screen and smiled. Then he began typing a response that would travel across the galaxy. The compact holds. The vigil ends. We are coming home. The galaxy was about to discover that humans were not myths. They were guardians who had been protecting everyone from the shadows. And now, for the first time in centuries, they were returning, but they were not coming back to a peaceful galaxy. Something else was stirring in the dark places beyond the rim. Something hungry and ancient and terrible. The humans had kept it, at bay for 200 years, but their watch was ending. Soon, everyone would learn why humans had disappeared, and why their return might be the only thing standing between the galaxy and complete destruction.